I can heal him. I just need faith. The farmer doubted until he saw it with his own eyes. Walter Thompson was desperate, watching his most valuable breeding bull weakened for 3 days. The local vet had visited the farm twice and left shaking his head, unable to identify what was wrong with the prized animal. That's when a skinny boy, no older than 15, appeared at the barn door where the bull lay. The boy looked straight at Walter and spoke with a conviction that surprised the 62-year-old farmer. "I can heal him. I just need faith," the young boy said, walking toward the animal without hesitation. Walter raised his hand to stop him. "Kid, you don't even know what you're saying. This bull is worth more than half the houses in this town. Dr. Henry, the best vet in Denver, already said it might be some rare disease." The boy wasn't intimidated. He kept walking until he reached the bull, kneeling beside it and placing his hand on its snout. "You've tried everything, haven't you? Medicine, injections, serum," the boy spoke without taking his eyes off the bull. "But what if the cure isn't in a pharmacy?" "Who are you, kid? Where did you come from?" Walter asked, but something in the boy's calmness stopped him from simply throwing him out. "My name is Ethan. I live nearby, just past the pasture. I heard Thunder was sick." Walter was surprised. Thunder was the bull's name, but few in the area knew that. The animal had earned the nickname after winning 3 straight livestock competitions. "How do you know his name?" Ethan kept stroking the bull's snout, and for the first time in days, the animal slightly lifted its head. "Animals talk to us, Mr. Walter. We're the ones who forgot how to listen." The farmer felt a chill. There was something different about this boy, something that reminded him of his own childhood in the countryside, back when he still believed in things adulthood had buried. "Have you done this before?" Walter asked, watching as the bull seemed to respond to the boy's touch. "I've saved a few animals, yes. My great-grandmother taught me before she passed. She said every living thing has an inner strength, but sometimes that strength gets lost and needs someone to help it find its way back." Walter was torn between suspicion and growing curiosity. The bull had cost a fortune and was the pride of his property. He couldn't risk letting some unknown boy mess with it. On the other hand, conventional methods weren't working. "And what do you need to do this?" he asked, still hesitant. "Time, patience, and for you to believe, even just a little," Ethan replied, running his hands gently along the bull's neck. "Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out." Now back to the story. Just then, Martha, Walter's wife, appeared at the barn door. She had turned 60 the previous month and walked with difficulty due to worsening arthritis. "Walter, who is this boy?" she asked, leaning on the cane she used on her hardest days. "Mrs. Martha." Ethan stood up respectfully. "I came to try and help Thunder." The woman studied the boy carefully. There was something familiar in those dark eyes, a determination that reminded her of someone, but she couldn't place who. "Whose son are you, Ethan?" she asked gently. "I don't have any family left, ma'am. I've been on my own for a few years." Martha exchanged a worried glance with her husband. It was hard to believe a boy so young was alone in the world. "Where do you live?" Ethan hesitated before answering. "Around. Where there's work, where they'll have me." The vague answer didn't convince either of them, but Martha decided not to press the matter for now. There was something more urgent to address. "And do you really believe you can help our bull?" she asked. "I do, yes. But it'll take a few days. It's not magic, Mrs. Martha. It's care, dedication, and—" He paused. "Faith." Walter huffed. "Faith doesn't pay bills, boy. Faith doesn't cure an animal worth a house." "But faith moves mountains, Mr. Walter," Martha interjected, surprising her husband. "At least for today, let the boy try. What do we have to lose?" The farmer looked at his wife, then at the boy, and finally at the bull. Emperor was clearly weak, breathing heavily and barely eating for days. If they didn't do something, they might lose him anyway. "All right," he said after a long sigh. "You have until tomorrow morning. But if he gets worse, I'm calling the vet back." Ethan nodded and returned to the bull's side. He began making slow, circular motions with his hands over the animal, murmuring words too soft for either of them to understand. "What exactly are you doing?" Walter asked. I'm feeling where his pain is. Every animal shows it differently, but they all show it. Emperor's chest is heavy and his hind legs are numb. Walter was surprised. The vet had mentioned those exact symptoms in his diagnosis. How do you know that? He showed me, Ethan replied simply. For the rest of the afternoon, Ethan stayed by the bull's side. Martha watched from the kitchen window, intrigued by the boy's patience. Walter tried to focus on farm chores, but returned to the barn every half hour to check on things. Around 5 in the evening, as the sun began to set, Ethan stood and walked to the house. Mr. Walter, can I ask a favor? Speak, boy. Emperor needs fresh water every 2 hours through the night, and it has to be well water, not from the tap. Walter frowned. Son, that's a lot of work. I'll do it, Ethan offered. I can sleep in the barn if you'll let me. Sleep in the barn? Martha had approached and overheard. Absolutely not. You'll have dinner with us and sleep in the house. No need to trouble yourself, Mrs. Martha. I've slept in worse places. The answer saddened her. What kind of life had this boy lived to speak so casually about sleeping in bad conditions? It's no trouble at all. We have a guest room that's always empty anyway. Ethan smiled for the first time since arriving. Thank you kindly, but I still need to check on Emperor every 2 hours. That's fine, Walter agreed. We'll try it. During dinner, Martha served a hearty meal of rice, beans, roasted meat, and salad. Ethan ate politely, but it was clear he was very hungry. How long has it been since you've had a meal like this? Martha asked gently. A few days, Ethan replied, not wanting to elaborate. And this great-grandmother of yours who taught you about animals, where did she live? The boy's eyes dimmed. She tended a small property around here, knew a lot of country folk, helped those in need. When she passed 2 years ago, I had nowhere left to stay. Passed how? Walter asked. She got sick, didn't make it, Ethan said quietly. Martha's heart ached. This boy had lost the only family he had and was alone in the world. And since then, you've lived like this? Without a real home? I go where help's needed. Sometimes I work on one farm, sometimes another. There's always someone needing a hand with their animals. After dinner, Ethan stood. I'll go check on Emperor. In the barn, the bull seemed a bit more alert. Ethan sat beside him and began the circular hand movements again. What are you feeling? Walter asked, curious despite himself. He's struggling. It's like there's something inside him trying to get out but can't find the way. Something like what? Ethan stayed silent for a few minutes, focused. A very deep sadness. The Emperor is sad, Mr. Walter. Sad? Bulls get sad? All beings get sad. And sadness, when it has nowhere to go, turns into sickness. Walter thought that was absurd, but decided not to argue. The boy seemed genuinely worried about the animal. At 11 at night, Ethan asked permission to check on the bull again. Walter woke up and went with him. To his surprise, the Emperor had drunk some water and eaten a few blades of grass from the trough. Is this a good sign? He asked. Yes. He's starting to want to live again. During the early hours, Ethan got up 2 more times. On the second, Martha was also awake due to her arthritis pain. Do you ever sleep properly? She asked when she saw the boy walking down the hallway. I do sleep, Mrs. Martha, but when I'm caring for a sick animal, I need to stay alert. Can I come with you? I'm already awake. In the barn, Martha watched Ethan work. There was something hypnotic about the way he moved his hands, the concentration on his young face. Ethan, can I ask you a personal question? Sure. Are you certain you have no family? No one looking for you? The boy stopped what he was doing and looked at her. Why do you ask? It's just... Martha hesitated. You remind me of someone. I'm not sure who, but there's something familiar about you. Ethan turned his attention back to the bull. Sometimes people look alike without being related. Maybe, she agreed, but remained puzzled. The next morning, Walter got up early and went straight to the barn. To his surprise, he found the Emperor standing, walking slowly around the space. Ethan, he shouted, come see this. The boy came running, still wearing the borrowed clothes Martha had set aside for him. How is he? Ethan asked, approaching the bull. On his feet, For the first time in 4 days, he's standing. Ethan smiled and stroked the animal's neck. You're feeling better, aren't you, Emperor? As if understanding, the bull slightly nodded his head. Walter couldn't believe what he was seeing. Was there really some recovery happening? Does this mean he's cured? Not yet, Ethan replied, but he's on the right path. He'll need a few more days of care. How many days? About 5, maybe 6. Maybe. Depends on how he responds. Walter grew thoughtful. Letting a strange boy care for his most valuable animal for nearly a week was a tough decision. Ethan, where exactly are you from? What's your full story? The boy sighed. My great-grandmother was named Elizabeth. She lived on a small farm about 10 miles from here. When she passed, the landowner kicked me out. Since then, I've gone from farm to farm, offering help with animals. And does it work? This method of yours? Most of the time, yes. Not always, but most. Martha arrived at the barn just then, bringing breakfast for everyone. My goodness, she exclaimed when she saw the bull standing. He's better. He's getting better, Ethan corrected. Still needs care. As they had breakfast, Walter made a decision. All right, Ethan, you can stay a few more days, but I want to understand better how this works. I can explain, but it's hard to believe if you've never seen it. Try me. Ethan took a deep breath. Animals hold their emotions in their bodies. When they get very sad, scared, or distressed, those emotions turn into physical illnesses. My great-grandmother taught me to feel where those emotions are stuck and help the animal release them. Walter shook his head. That makes no scientific sense. It doesn't have to, Mr. Walter, it just has to work. On the second day, Ethan continued caring for Emperor. The bull showed clear signs of improvement, eating and drinking water regularly again. By late afternoon, a pickup truck appeared at the farm's entrance. It was Dr. Henry, the veterinarian. Walter, he called out as he approached. I came to check on the bull. Last night I kept thinking about the case and brought some new medications to try. Walter felt embarrassed. How could he explain he'd let an untrained boy care for the animal? Dr. Henry, the bull is better. Better how? Did you apply some treatment? Just then Ethan stepped out of the barn. The vet looked at him strangely. Who's this boy? Well, it's a long story, Walter replied. How about you take a look at Emperor first? Inside the barn, Dr. Henry was stunned. The bull was clearly better, walking, eating, and looking much stronger. How did this happen? What medication did you use? Walter glanced at Ethan, who stayed silent. Actually, doctor, we didn't use any medication. What do you mean? Ethan, he has a different method. The vet eyed the boy skeptically. What kind of method? It's hard to explain, Ethan answered. I work with the animal's natural energy. Natural energy? Dr. Henry laughed. Kid, veterinary medicine is science, not esotericism. I know that, doctor. I'm not speaking against medicine. I'm talking about something that complements it. This is absurd, the vet declared. Walter, you can't possibly be taking this seriously. Walter found himself in a tough spot. On one hand, he deeply respected Dr. Henry and his expertise. On the other, he couldn't deny Emperor was visibly better. Doctor, what matters is the bull is recovering, right? It must have been a natural recovery. Sometimes the animal's own system kicks in after a few days. Ethan didn't argue, but kept tending to the bull. Dr. Henry stayed a while longer, examining the animal, then left shaking his head, clearly unsettled by the situation. That night at dinner, Martha made a remark that surprised everyone. Ethan, ever since you arrived, my joint pain has lessened. Mrs. Martha? Walter looked at her in astonishment. It's true. Yesterday and today, I've felt less pain than in the past few months. Ethan grew thoughtful. Do you worry a lot about things? What do you mean? Anxiety, worry, fear, those emotions can turn into physical pain for people too. Martha was taken aback. Well, I have been quite worried. About the farm, the bills, getting older. And you carry those worries in your shoulders and joints. Here it's very common. Walter grew more intrigued by the boy's observations. How did you learn all this so young? My great-grandmother started teaching me when I was 7. She said I had a gift, that I could feel what others feel. And you really do? Ethan hesitated. Sometimes, yes. Not always, but sometimes I can tell when someone's sad or in pain, even if they don't show it. Martha was moved. What a beautiful gift you have, Ethan. It's not always a gift, Mrs. Martha. Sometimes it's heavy feeling others' pain. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. On the third day, something happened that would completely change the course of the situation. Martha was in town running errands when she ran into Susan, an old friend who worked at the county clerk's office. Martha, how are you? And Walter? We're doing well, Susan, and you? Getting by. Listen, can I ask you something a little strange? Of course. Are you keeping a boy at the farm? A kid about 15 years old? Martha grew alert. Why do you ask? Well, someone showed up at the clerk's office looking for him, a woman from Fort Collins. Said the boy ran away from a youth center about 2 weeks ago. Martha's heart raced. What did this woman look like? About 40, short hair, very serious. She said the boy had behavioral issues and that his family had asked for help finding him. Martha was disturbed. Ethan had told them he had no family. Did she leave any contact information? Yes, she did. Said if anyone saw a boy matching the description, they should call her. Martha returned home distressed. How could she tell Walter about this? And more importantly, how should she bring it up with Ethan? When she got to the farm, she found Walter and Ethan in the barn. Thunder was doing even better, already able to walk normally. I need to talk to both of you, she said. In the kitchen, Martha shared everything she'd learned in town. Ethan turned pale. Did you lie to us? Walter asked, clearly upset. I didn't lie about not having a family, Ethan replied softly. I really don't have one. But you ran away from a youth center? And this woman looking for you? Ethan took a deep breath. She's the director of the place they put me after my great-grandmother passed. It's not a good place. What do you mean it's not good? Martha asked with concern. They don't believe in what I do. They think I have mental problems because I say I can help animals. They wanted to give me medicine to fix me. Walter and Martha exchanged worried glances. And you ran away because of that? I ran because they wanted to stop me from using the gift my great-grandmother taught me. There, I couldn't help any animals. I couldn't even get near them. Ethan, Martha moved closer to the boy, you have to understand they're probably worried. A youth center has responsibilities. I know, Mrs. Thompson, but I can't go back there. They'll drug me until I forget everything I've learned. Walter was torn. On one hand, he understood the boy's difficult situation. On the other, he couldn't harbor a runaway. Son, this is complicated. I can't hide you if the authorities are looking for you. Ethan lowered his head. I understand, Mr. Thompson. I'll leave today. Hold on, Martha intervened. No one said you have to leave today. Let's talk to this woman first, understand the situation better. Martha, Walter warned. Walter, this boy isn't a criminal. He's trying to use a gift to help others. At least let's hear both sides of the story. That afternoon, Martha called the number her friend had given her. A stern woman's voice answered. Hello? Good afternoon, my name is Martha Williams. I heard you're looking for a boy. Yes, have you seen him? Where is he? The urgency in the woman's voice made Martha suspicious. Before anything, I'd like to understand the situation better. What exactly is the problem with the boy? The problem is, he's a minor under our care and he ran away. That's a crime, ma'am. I see. But why would he run? Did something happen at the facility? There was a pause on the other end of the line. The boy has behavioral issues, believes in strange things, talks to animals. He was undergoing psychiatric treatment. Martha felt her blood boil. Psychiatric treatment for talking to animals. Ma'am, that's none of your concern. Did you see the boy or not? Maybe. But first I need to understand if he's being treated well there. How dare you question our institution? We're licensed and supervised by the proper authorities. The conversation was getting tense. Martha decided to end it. I'll think about what to do and get back to you. She hung up the phone and grew thoughtful. There was something about that woman's attitude that didn't sit right with her. That evening she told Walter and Ethan about the conversation. She was very aggressive, Martha explained, and this whole story about psychiatric treatment just for caring for animals didn't convince me. Ethan nodded. That's just how it is there, Mrs. Martha. They think anything different is a mental illness. But Ethan, Walter reasoned, you have to understand that your behavior is really unusual. Unusual isn't the same as sick, Mr. Walter. My great-grandmother cared for hundreds of animals the same way. No one ever thought she had mental problems. Martha had an idea. Ethan, you said you know other people who do the same kind of work. I know a few, not many, but some. Could you introduce us to someone older who could confirm your story? Ethan thought for a moment. There's old Harold. He lives about 12 miles from here. He knew my great-grandmother and also cares for animals this way. Do you think he'd talk to us? I think so. The next day, Walter, Martha, and Ethan took the pickup truck and went to find this old Harold. The property was down a dirt road, a small farm with a few horses and chickens. Harold was a man in his 70s with completely white hair and hands calloused from farm work. When he saw Ethan, he broke into a huge smile. Ethan, boy, I've missed you. How are you? I'm good, Mr. Harold. These are Mr. Walter and Mrs. Martha. I've been helping with a sick bull at their farm. Harold greeted the couple and invited them into his simple but very clean and tidy home. So you met Ethan while he was caring for a sick animal? He asked, serving coffee. We did, Walter replied, and we're trying to understand how it all works. Ah, Ethan has a special gift. His great-grandmother Elizabeth had it too. Not everyone is born with that kind of sensitivity. You knew his great-grandmother? Very well, Mrs. Elizabeth was a wise woman, helped many animals in this area for decades. Martha felt relieved. At least the boy's story about his great-grandmother was true. And this method really works? She asked. It does, Mrs. Martha. Not always, but it works. Ethan himself has helped me with some sick horses. How so? Harold stood and led them to the small stable behind the house. There were 3 horses there, all looking healthy. That mare over there, Star, he pointed to a brown mare, was given up on about 6 months ago. The vet said there was no hope. Ethan spent 3 days caring for her, and she made a full recovery. Walter was impressed. 3 days? 3 days. Ethan slept in the stable those 3 days, looking after her day and night. And you really believe it works? How? Harold smiled. I don't need to understand how it works, Mr. Walter. I just see that it does. Sometimes we want to explain everything, but not everything in this life has a scientific explanation. During the conversation, Ethan explained his situation, how he'd run away from St. Paul's Youth Center. Those people don't understand a thing. Harold shook his head. They want to fit everyone into a little box. If you don't fit their box, they think you're broken. But legally, Walter asked, what can we do? Well, you could try talking to the county judge. Explain the situation, introduce Ethan, show that he's being well cared for and isn't doing anything wrong. Do you think the judge would understand? Judge Richard, who's the judge here, is a good man. He knows rural life. Maybe he'd understand better than those city folks. The suggestion seemed reasonable. On the way back, they discussed the possibility. Ethan, Martha asked, would you be willing to talk to a judge? Explain your situation? I would, yes. But do you think he'll believe me? If he's fair, he'll at least listen, Walter replied. When they got back to the farm, they were in for a surprise. Emperor was in the pasture, grazing normally with the other animals. Look at that, Walter exclaimed. He's completely recovered. Ethan smiled. It was time for him to return to the herd. Staying isolated in the barn isn't good for any animal. How long had he been in the barn? Since he got sick, 4 days. And you knew he was ready to come out? He showed me. He was restless this morning, staring at the pasture. Walter shook his head, impressed. Every day he understood less how this worked, but he couldn't deny the results. That afternoon they got an unexpected call. It was the director of the youth center. Mrs. Martha, this is Karen from St. Paul's Youth Center. You called yesterday asking about a boy. I did, yes. We found out where you live. I'm on my way to your property with a social worker. We'll be there in an hour. Martha was alarmed. How did you get my address? We have our methods. The important thing is we're coming for the boy. The call ended abruptly. Martha rushed to tell Walter and Ethan. They're coming here, she said, flustered. Ethan turned pale. I knew this would happen. I'll run before they get here. No, Martha grabbed the boy's arm. We won't let you run away again. We'll face this together. But Mrs. Martha, Ethan, trust us. We won't abandon you. Walter was deep in thought. We have an hour. I'll call Judge Richard. Maybe he can guide us. The call to the courthouse was answered by the secretary. Judge Richard is in court, but I can take a message for him to call back. It's urgent. Tell him it's about a minor at risk. He'll call back as soon as possible. While they waited, Martha prepared Ethan for what might happen. Be respectful, but tell the truth. Don't hide anything. If they ask about the animals, explain calmly. And if they don't believe me, then we'll show them Emperor. Ethan laughed for the first time in hours. Emperor as a witness? Why not? Walter joined in. If they want proof you know how to care for animals, they'll get the best proof possible. At 4 in the afternoon, a white car appeared at the farm's entrance. 2 people stepped out, a middle-aged woman in professional clothes and a young man in a suit. Walter went to greet them at the gate. Good afternoon, I'm Walter Thompson, the owner of this property. Good afternoon, I'm Karen Williams, director of St. Paul's Youth Center, and this is Brian, the social worker. We're here for Ethan Wilson. Ethan is here, yes, but before anything, we'd like to talk about his situation. There's nothing to discuss, sir. He's a minor and under our legal care. He ran away from the facility a week ago. We understand that, but we'd also like to know why he ran away. Karen grew impatient. That's none of your concern. Where's the boy? Martha appeared on the porch. Ethan, she called, come here, please. The boy stepped forward, visibly nervous. When he saw Karen, his expression closed off. Hello, Ethan, Karen said with false sweetness. You gave us quite a scare. Ready to go home? I don't want to go back, Ethan replied softly. It's not about what you want, sweetheart. You're a minor and need proper supervision. He's being well supervised here, Martha intervened. By you. Brian, the social worker, spoke for the first time. Do you have training in caring for minors in vulnerable situations? We don't have specific training, Walter admitted, but we're taking good care of him. That's not enough, Karen declared. Ethan, get your things. We're leaving. Wait, Ethan said, gathering courage. Can I explain why I ran away? You ran away because you have trouble accepting authority and following rules, Karen replied impatiently. I ran away because you wanted to give me medicine to stop me from caring for the animals. Brian made a note on his clipboard. Ethan, do you understand that talking to animals isn't normal? I don't talk to animals, Ethan explained. I can sense when they're sick, and I know how to help them. And that worked here? Brian asked skeptically. It did, Walter answered. My bull was very sick a week ago. 3 veterinarians couldn't help. Ethan healed him in 4 days. Karen laughed sarcastically. Gentlemen, the boy isn't a vet. He has delusions of having special powers. They're not delusions, Martha snapped. We saw the results. Do you want to see? Ethan asked, surprising everyone. See what? Brian asked. The bull. He was almost really bad a week ago. Now he's completely fine. Brian and Karen exchanged glances. Fine, Brian said. Let's see this bull. They all went to the pasture where Emperor grazed peacefully. The animal was visibly healthy, strong, and active. This is the bull? Brian asked. Yes, Walter confirmed. A week ago he was in the barn, unable to stand. And you really believe the boy healed him? We believe it because we saw it, Martha replied firmly. Karen grew impatient. Well, that's irrelevant. The important thing is that Ethan comes back with us. Just then, the house phone rang. Martha answered. Hello? Mrs. Martha, this is Judge Richard from the courthouse. I got your message. I'm on my way to your farm to better understand the situation. That's wonderful, Judge. We'll be waiting. When she hung up, everyone looked at her. The judge is coming here, she announced. Karen frowned. What judge? Judge Richard, the county judge. We asked for guidance regarding Ethan's situation. This is unnecessary. We have legal authority to take the boy. Then it won't hurt to wait for the judge to arrive, right? Walter suggested. Brian and Karen had no choice but to agree. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. 15 minutes later, an official courthouse car arrived. A man in his 50s stepped out, with graying hair and a serious but not intimidating demeanor. Good afternoon, I'm Judge Richard Wilson, the county judge. I received information about a situation involving a minor. Everyone introduced themselves. The judge greeted each politely. So, what exactly is the situation? He asked. Karen stepped forward. Judge, the minor Ethan Wilson ran away from our institution a week ago. We've come to take him back. And why did he run away? The judge asked Ethan directly. The boy took a deep breath. Judge, they wanted to give me medicine to stop me from caring for the animals. They said I had a mental problem. Caring for animals how? Ethan explained everything. His great-grandmother, the methods he'd learned, the results he'd achieved, and the situation with Emperor. The judge listened carefully, asking specific questions. And this bull really got better? He asked Walter. Completely better, Judge. I was skeptical myself, but I saw it with my own eyes. May I examine the animal? Of course. They went back to the pasture. Judge Richard observed Emperor for a few minutes. And a week ago, how was he? Couldn't stand? Wouldn't eat? Struggling to breathe? Walter explained. The judge turned to Karen. And at the institution, what exactly was the treatment Ethan was receiving? Psychiatric monitoring to address his delusions, she replied curtly. Delusions about what? That he can heal animals by talking to them. He doesn't talk to animals, Martha interjected. He observes and cares for them using traditional methods. Judge Richard fell silent for a few moments. Ethan, would you like to go back to the institution? No, Judge. There, they don't let me do what I know how to do. And here, are you being treated well? Yes, I am. Mr. Walter and Mrs. Martha are taking very good care of me. The judge addressed the couple. Would you be willing to take official responsibility for the boy? Walter and Martha exchanged glances. We would, Martha answered. It would be our pleasure. But Judge, Karen protested, we have legal custody of the minor. And I have the authority to revise that custody if it's not serving the child's best interests, the judge replied firmly. Brian tried to argue. Judge, this couple has no experience or training to care for a vulnerable minor. And do you? Judge Richard asked. Because from what I've seen, the treatment you provided was harming the boy's development, not helping. Karen flushed with anger. Judge, that's outrageous. Our institution is licensed and supervised. Being licensed doesn't mean you're doing good work, the judge answered calmly. Ethan, one question. Do you feel happier and safer here or at the institution? Here, Judge, much happier. Why? Because here I can be who I am. I can use what I've learned to help others. Judge Richard nodded. I'll review the situation and issue a temporary order until we can hold a formal hearing. He stepped away for a few minutes, deep in thought. When he returned, his decision was made. For now, Ethan will remain under the care of Mr. Walter and Mrs. Martha. I'll issue a temporary custody order for them. In 30 days, we'll hold a hearing to review the situation definitively. Karen exploded. This is absurd, Judge. You can't hand a minor over to unqualified people. I can, and I am, the judge replied with authority. The boy was being harmed at the institution. Here, he's thriving. My duty is to protect the child's best interests. Brian tried to argue further, but Judge Richard was unmoved. The decision is final. I'll prepare the paperwork and send it by tomorrow. Karen and Brian left the farm visibly upset, but powerless against the court's ruling. Once alone, Ethan hugged Martha and Walter. Thank you so much for not giving up on me. We're the ones who should thank you, Ethan, Martha said, emotional. You've brought a joy to our home we haven't felt in a long time. That evening over dinner, they discussed the next steps. We have the hearing in 30 days, Walter reminded them. We need to prepare well. What can we do? Martha asked. I think we should document everything Ethan does here. Show he's thriving, studying, helping on the farm. What about school? Ethan asked. I can't stop learning. You won't, Martha assured him. We'll enroll you in the town school. And if other animals get sick, can I keep helping? Of course, Walter answered. In fact, I've been thinking, how about we make your work official? How so? We could talk to other farmers in the area. Many people have problems with sick animals. If you can help more cases, it'll be an even stronger proof of your worth. The idea excited Ethan. That would be great. Then I can help more animals and show I'm not crazy. You were never crazy, Ethan, Martha said affectionately. You're special. And being special isn't a flaw. It's a gift. In the following days, life on the farm adjusted around Ethan's presence. The boy woke up early, helped Walter with chores, spent time studying with Martha's help, and always set aside a few hours to observe and care for the animals. Word about the boy who heals animals began spreading through the region. On the fourth day after the judge's decision, the first visitor arrived. It was Mr. Paul, the owner of a neighboring farm. Walter, I heard you've got a boy who understands sick animals. We do, Paul. Why? Well, I've got a cow that's been poorly for a week. I've called the vet twice, but she's not getting better. Walter called Ethan over. Paul, this is Ethan. Ethan, Mr. Paul has a sick cow. Can I take a look at her? Ethan asked. Of course, son. I'm willing to try anything. They went to Mr. Paul's farm. The cow was visibly weak, kept apart from the others in a separate pen. Ethan approached the animal and watched quietly for a few minutes, doing nothing. What are you seeing? Paul asked. She's got belly pain, but it's not an illness, it's sadness. Sadness? Cows get sad? All animals do, Mr. Paul. Did this cow have a calf recently? Paul looked surprised. She did. It was born a month ago, but it didn't survive. Ethan nodded. She's grieving. She can't accept losing her baby. What can we do? She needs time, kindness, and the company of the other cows. She shouldn't be isolated. But the vet said to keep her separate. The vet treated the physical part. Now we need to care for the emotional part. Ethan spent about 2 hours with the cow, making the same circular motions he'd used with Emperor. Gradually, the animal calmed down. You can put her back with the herd now, Ethan advised, but it'll take a few days for her to fully recover. How much do I owe you? Paul asked. Ethan hesitated. He'd never thought about charging. You don't have to pay, Mr. Paul. If she gets better, that's enough for me. No way, son. Work deserves payment. On the way back, Walter talked to Ethan about it. Mr. Paul is right. If you're going to help other farmers, you should be paid. But I do this because I like it, not for money. I know, but you have expenses, Ethan. Clothes, school supplies, food. And someday you'll want to study more, maybe take a course. Money will be necessary. Ethan thought it over. So how much should I charge? Let's see how the cases go. If you get results, the price will adjust naturally. 3 days later, Mr. Paul returned to the farm, thrilled. Ethan, the cow's better. She's eating normally and giving milk again. The boy smiled. That's good, Mr. Paul. She just needed time to accept the loss. Here's your payment. Paul handed him some bills. And one more thing. I've told 3 other farmers who want your help. From that day on, Ethan started getting regular requests. Always accompanied by Walter or Martha, he visited farms in the area to care for sick animals. Each case was different. Sometimes it was a physical issue vets hadn't identified correctly. Other times it was emotional problems, like the cow's grief or animals stressed by changes in their environment. Ethan built a reputation in the region. The farmers began seeking him out as a sort of alternative consultation when conventional methods didn't work. 2 weeks before the hearing, the case that would definitively solidify Ethan's credibility occurred. Mr. Robert, one of the region's top horse breeders, showed up at the ranch in a state of despair. Walter, I need Ethan urgently. My champion horse is in terrible shape. 3 vets have already examined him, and no one knows what's wrong. What symptoms is he showing? Ethan asked. He won't eat or drink water, and he gets aggressive when anyone approaches. He's been like this for 5 days. Let's go, Ethan said, grabbing the bag he'd grown accustomed to taking on calls. Mr. Robert's property was impressive. Dozens of high-quality horses, modern facilities, and specialized staff. The sick horse was in an isolated stall, a magnificent animal but visibly worn down. "What's his name?" Ethan asked. "Thunder. He's my best stud." Ethan approached the stall slowly. The horse immediately grew restless, neighing and stomping his hooves. "He won't let anyone near him," Robert warned. "He will," Ethan said confidently. He began speaking softly to the animal, not recognizable words, but gentle, rhythmic sounds. Gradually, Thunder calmed down. After 20 minutes, Ethan managed to enter the stall and touch the horse. "What do you sense?" Walter asked. "Intense pain in his back, but it's not an illness, it's an injury." "An injury? How?" Ethan examined the horse with his hands, stopping at specific points. "Mr. Robert, did Thunder fall recently, or take a hard blow to his back?" Robert thought for a moment. "Last week there was a bad storm, some branches fell in the pasture. It's possible that—" "That's it," Ethan confirmed. "His muscles are locked up, and at least one rib is out of place." "The vets didn't catch that?" "Because he wouldn't let anyone examine him properly. When an animal's in pain, it gets aggressive to protect itself." Ethan worked with Thunder for 3 hours, performing targeted massages and gentle movements to realign his bones. "What exactly are you doing?" one of the workers asked. "Relaxing his muscles and helping his bones return to the right place. My great-grandmother taught me that animals know how to heal. They just need help remembering how." By evening, Thunder was visibly better. He drank water and ate some feed. "He'll need a few more days of care," Ethan advised, "but the worst is over." Mr. Robert was amazed. In 5 days, 3 trained vets couldn't even examine him properly. "You, in 3 hours, identified the problem and started treatment." "Vets are important," Ethan said humbly. "They know things I don't, but sometimes we need different approaches." "How much do you charge?" Ethan was still learning how to handle payment. "You decide what you think is fair." Robert handed over a significant sum, far more than Ethan had received in other cases. If Thunder makes a full recovery, there'll be a bonus. On the way back, Walter was beaming. "Ethan, do you realize what's happening? You're building a career, a future. I just want to help animals. And you are. But you're also building yourself as a person, gaining independence, recognition, honest money." "Walter's right," Martha agreed. "And this will matter at the hearing. We'll be able to show you're not a troubled boy, you're a talented, productive young man." 3 days later, Thunder was fully recovered. Mr. Robert made a point of bringing the horse to Walter's ranch so everyone could see the results. "Look at this," he said proudly, as Thunder trotted vigorously in the pasture. 5 days ago, this horse was given up for dead. Today, he's better than before." The news spread quickly. Ethan began receiving requests from farmers in neighboring towns. A week before the hearing, Martha had an idea. "Ethan, what if we wrote a letter to the judge explaining everything that's happened these past 30 days? A letter detailing all the cases you've handled, the results you've achieved, how you're progressing in your studies, how you're adjusting to life here." "That's a good idea," Walter agreed. "And we can ask some of the farmers you've helped to write testimonials. Do you think it'll make a difference?" "It will," Martha assured him. "We'll show the judge you're not a problem. You're a solution." Over the following days, they organized all the documentation. There were 12 cases Ethan had handled in a month, with 11 positive outcomes. The farmers wrote enthusiastic testimonials about the boy's work. The teacher at the school where Ethan had enrolled also wrote a positive report about his performance and adjustment. Finally, the day of the hearing arrived. Martha, Walter, and Ethan dressed in their best clothes and went to the courthouse. The room was full. Besides them, Karen and Brian from St. Paul's Youth Center were present, along with a prosecutor and, surprisingly, several local farmers who had come to support Ethan. Judge Richard began the hearing by reviewing the case. "We're here to determine the custody situation for the minor Ethan Wilson. Over these 30 days, he has been under the provisional care of Mr. Walter and Mrs. Martha. We'll hear from all parties." Karen spoke first, repeating her arguments that Ethan needed psychiatric supervision and that the couple wasn't qualified to care for a minor. The prosecutor asked technical questions about the conditions at the youth center and the treatment methods used. Then, it was Walter and Martha's turn to present their defense. They showed all the organized documentation, the farmers' testimonials, and the school report. "Your Honor," Martha said, "this boy doesn't need psychiatric treatment. He needs an opportunity to develop his talent." The judge called Ethan to testify. "Ethan, how do you feel living with Mr. Walter and Mrs. Martha?" "I feel at home, Your Honor. For the first time since my great-grandmother passed, I feel at home." "And about your work with animals, can you explain how it works?" Ethan patiently explained, giving specific examples of cases he'd handled. "Are you aware this isn't a recognized scientific method?" "I am, Your Honor. But I also know it works, and I always advise owners not to skip veterinary care. My work is complementary. It doesn't replace veterinary medicine." The judge was impressed by the maturity of his answer. At that moment, Mr. Robert asked to speak. "Your Honor, may I give a statement?" "Go ahead." "I've been a horse breeder for 30 years. I've worked with the best veterinarians in the area. What this boy did with my horse was extraordinary. It wasn't luck. It wasn't a coincidence. It was skill." Other farmers also asked to speak, all sharing positive experiences with Ethan. The prosecutor asked a few questions about school supervision and living conditions, which were answered satisfactorily. After hearing everyone, Judge Richard stepped out to deliberate. 15 minutes later, he returned with his decision. "After reviewing all the evidence presented, I find that the minor Ethan Wilson is better adjusted and thriving under the care of Mr. Walter and Mrs. Martha than he was in the previous institution." Karen tried to protest, but the judge continued. "Therefore, I grant permanent custody to the couple with the following conditions: regular school monitoring, quarterly reports on the child's development, and biannual social supervision." Ethan embraced Martha and Walter, overcome with emotion. The farmers present applauded. "Thank you, Judge," Ethan said. "I promise I won't let you down." "You've already proven you won't, Ethan. Keep using your gift to help others." Leaving the courthouse, Ethan was congratulated by all the farmers present. His reputation was now firmly established. On the way home, Martha reflected, "Ethan, do you realize your life has completely changed in these 2 months? It's changed a lot, but the most important thing is that now I can do what I love without anyone thinking I'm crazy." "And what do you want for the future?" yours Walter asked. "I want to keep helping animals, maybe even study veterinary medicine. It'd be good to combine both kinds of knowledge." "That would be wonderful," Martha agreed. "Imagine a vet who also masters traditional healing methods." "That's exactly what I want to be." Months later, Ethan had become a well-known and respected figure in the region. His work with sick animals grew steadily, always in respectful partnership with local veterinarians. Dr. Henry, who had initially been skeptical, eventually became a collaborator. Together, they developed a protocol where Ethan conducted initial evaluations of difficult cases, identifying aspects conventional tests couldn't detect. "You know, Ethan," the vet said one day, "I was wrong about you. Science doesn't mean rejecting what we don't understand. It means studying and trying to learn. You were never wrong, Dr. Henry. You were just being careful. That's important in medicine." The partnership worked so well that other vets in the area began referring challenging cases to them. Martha, who had found in Ethan the son she never had, devoted herself to his education with enthusiasm. Her own arthritic pains had significantly eased, and she credited it to the joy of having a complete family. Walter discovered that having Ethan around had renewed his passion for the farm. Together, they implemented more compassionate animal care methods based on the philosophy that happy animals are healthy animals. The farm became a model in the region, with other owners visiting to learn about humane animal management. A year after their first meeting in the barn, Ethan received a special invitation. The State University wanted him to participate in a study on alternative veterinary medicine methods. "This is an incredible opportunity," Martha said, reading the letter. "They want to document your methods scientifically. Do you think I should accept?" "Of course," Walter replied. "It could be the start of something much bigger." "How so?" "Imagine if we could scientifically prove your methods work. It could help thousands of animals worldwide." The idea excited Ethan. Since childhood, he'd dreamed of helping as many animals as possible. Now that possibility seemed real. On his 17th birthday, Ethan took stock of his life. He'd found a family who loved and supported him. A promising career was unfolding. His methods were gaining scientific recognition, but most importantly, he could use the gift his great-grandmother had taught him to make a difference in the world. "You know what makes me happiest?" he said during his birthday dinner. "What?" Martha asked. "Now I finally understand what my great-grandmother meant when she talked about faith." "How so?" "She wasn't talking about believing in miracles. She meant believing in people, in animals, in life. To have faith that there's always a way to help, even when it seems impossible." Walter smiled. "And you proved she was right." "We proved it," Ethan corrected, "because without you believing in me, I never would have made it this far." That night, Ethan went to check on the farm animals, one last time before bed, a habit he'd kept since his very first day there. In the pasture, Emperor approached the boy, as he always did. The bull, now fully recovered, had become something of a mascot for Ethan. "Thank you, Emperor," Ethan said, stroking the animal. "How you started all this?" The bull seemed to understand, gently nodding his head. Gazing up at the stars, Ethan thought of his great-grandmother. She'd been wise to teach him that his gift wasn't just for healing animals, but for connecting all forms of life. Now he understood that healing a sick animal was only the beginning. The real gift was helping people believe there's always hope, always a solution, and that we should never give up on each other. When Walter had doubted him that first day, Ethan hadn't been offended. He understood that doubt was natural, that trust had to be earned through hard work and results. And when he finally proved his gift was real, the reward wasn't just saving the bull. It was finding a family, building a career, and discovering that faith moves mountains when paired with dedication, patience, and love. 2 years later, Ethan was studying veterinary medicine on a scholarship, the result of his pioneering work integrating traditional and scientific methods. Walter and Martha, now officially his adoptive parents, couldn't have been prouder. The farm had become a model for animal welfare, drawing visits from students and professionals across the country. Ethan's story had also changed many other lives. St. Paul's Youth Center was investigated and completely reformed its methods, now respecting each child's individuality. Karen, the former director, was replaced by a professional trained in humanized education. Brian, the social worker, ended up specializing in unique talents. Judge Richard, the courageous judge who chose to listen to a boy rather than just follow protocol, became known for his innovative approach in cases involving gifted minors. Ethan never forgot where he came from. He regularly visited youth centers to speak with children who, like him, felt different and misunderstood. "The important thing," he always said, "is to never give up on who you are. Sometimes it takes time to find the right people, but they're out there, and when you do, everything changes." On one of those visits, he met a 12-year-old girl who claimed she could feel when plants were sick. The caretakers thought she had mental issues. Ethan smiled. He'd found someone to teach what his great-grandmother had taught him. That special gifts aren't illnesses, they're blessings to be nurtured with love and used to help others. The story had begun with a sick bull and a desperate farmer, but it had grown into something far greater, proof that faith, when combined with hard work and people who believe in us, truly can move mountains. And the most beautiful part? The story was still being written. With every animal healed, every person who rediscovered hope, every different child who found their place in the world, the story kept growing. Ethan had learned that miracles don't happen alone. They happen when someone has the courage to believe, someone has the patience to teach, someone has the wisdom to guide, and someone has the authority to protect. In the end, he hadn't just healed sick animals. He had healed a broken family, a skeptical community, and a world that sometimes forgets that special gifts deserve to be celebrated, not medicated. The real cure wasn't in Ethan's hands. It was in the love of Walter and Martha, in Judge Richard's courage, in old Harold's wisdom, and in the faith of all who believed that a different boy could make a difference. And so the boy who once said, "I can heal him, I just need faith," proved himself right. Not because he had magical powers, but because he had something even more powerful, the ability to make others believe in the impossible and work together to make it possible. The end of the story. Now tell us, what did you think of Ethan's story? Do you know someone who, like him, has a special gift that isn't always understood? Do you believe there are forms of healing that go beyond traditional medicine? Share your honest thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of perseverance and faith, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other heartwarming stories like this one.